Live. A very good evening. My name is Karabo Dynamite Nyalungu. I am the first female chairperson of Yale Village, and I welcome you to yet another Instagram installment. Tonight, we are going to talk about a very, very important topic. We've all survived the first semester, and it is all by God's grace. And we are here now about to start the second semester. Congratulations to everyone who has passed. And also, we are going to be here to motivate people who didn't make it and people who didn't make it as well as they wanted to. Feel free to interact with us on the comment section. Today we will be joined by Phenyo Mabokela. Phenyo is a graduate of Wits University. He was doing BCom General, and he is a DLU trainer. He is also a member of the Golden Key. He has experienced his fair share of failure as well academically, and he has risen above it. As we talk, he has conquered the edge. He is a vetsy, and he's paid his dues as far as that is concerned. We are here to motivate everyone, starting from first year right through the sixth year of study, which is not even in medicine, and that is absolutely okay. We are here reaching out to every student, and we want us to be as vulnerable as possible so that we are as honest as possible with each other about this academic journey that is a hurdle to all of us. Let me invite Phenyo Mabokela, and let's engage with us in the comment section. Feel free to drop your comments, drop your questions that you may have for Phenyo. He is one person that I trust. If you see a familiar face, please do know that Phenyo Mabokela has a twin, and I am told that the twin has dropped a music album today. You may go and check it. I think Phenyo will give you the details to that after this. But Phenyo, how are you?
Hi. Again, it's always great talking to you, Karabo, and my chairperson. So I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Every day has its ups and downs, same as every week. But at the end of the day, I'm doing great.
So how do I tell if this is Phenyo Mabokela and not Ofenze Mabokela?
It gets a bit tricky because before he used to have like dreadlocks, so people could easily tell the difference. But now he's come back to his senses, and has cut his hair.
Okay, no, get you, Ben. I think we should just get on top of it so that we stay within time as well. Briefly tell me your history and your journey at high school. What kind of student were you? What marks got you here?
In high school?
Before you with the age and everything, tell me about the type of learner you were at high school.
Okay. I went to EDL Rampola High School or secondary school. You probably never heard of it. It was, I went to one of the unknown schools. It was a government school, very lively environment. At a government school, you get everything. You get the culture, you get the crazy things that happen, people dancing during class, and everybody runs out to go see the people dancing in the center of the school, fence jumping, fence cutting, all the works. And on my end, high school was quite interesting, really, for me, because it's where I got to experience a different environment to the one that I had in primary school, because I moved from one town to another. So it was a complete shift. In primary school, I went to a school, what they would call an English medium school. And, the biggest fight was someone slapping someone. And then kayakasi. And then kokasi, the fights were real. They were real. It was not slap, hey, I'll shout. It was real. And so that environment sort of pushed me to try and adapt very quickly, because I came from a place where you speak English, you go to a place where Venek is the order of the day, and you seem too well off, you are child. And so I really had to adapt a lot in high school. So I didn't really have a lot of friends and stuff like that. So I was very book orientated-ish, right? Yeah, but then, it came to a different kind of turn when I got to grade 9. The grade 9-10 divide, that self, and I barely made it to grade 10. Barely made it to grade 10. And from there, it was still a bit challenging. Maths was doing the most. I'm not going to lie to you. Maths was doing the most in high school. It was just doing the most. Grade 11, I think in grade 11, my maths was like level 3. Right. So it was just, other things were flourishing nicely under there, but mathematics was chowing me, which ultimately led to me being rejected for every course I applied for at Wits. Literally, like I got rejection letters. It was just a no. I got rejection letters from Wits and other universities. There's only one university that accepted me. I won't mention it so that it's not like I'm throwing shade, but every other rejected except that one, right? So in high school, I would say I was quite a not known person, very quiet, reserved, just there. I'm studying, I'm doing my thing. Other than that, I liked playing cards and playing soccer. I was not that great at it, but I played it nonetheless.
You mentioned that you were at some point having a level 3 in mathematics. Now take me back to your matric year, which I believe the results then secured you the space because you get provisionally accepted with some of us got that with grade 11 results. Now, what sort of matric average did you get that eventually got you a space and acceptance?
Look, matric, that maths, I moved it from level 3 to level 6. I was trying to go for level 7. But unfortunately, I didn't finish the second paper, the maths paper, and I didn't finish it because
no one does.
I was gonna finish it. Hey, all the preps, all the trials said, you're gonna finish, right? Then there was this 3-mark question, and I just spent so much time on it because I was refusing or like, there's no way I am not gonna skip this question. In high school, you have that thing of I'm not gonna skip this question. Then varsity teaches you to pick your battles wisely, right? Then I spent a lot of time on it, and I didn't get to finish the rest of the paper. But the marks still came out good. So I was like, it's not a level 7, but hey, compared to grade 11, where you're moving from level 3, and that level 3 included your assignments, right? So effectively, I was supposed to be maybe on like level 2 there, if I'm being objective about it. Right? I remember there was a paper I wrote in grade 10, I think, where adding my paper 1 and paper 2 gave me something like teenage years, So, yeah, so...
All right. You then enrolled for a BCom General. Your choice of degree, what influenced it?
I first enrolled for a Bachelor of Accounting Science. I'm not gonna cap on you. Like, I enrolled for a Bachelor of Accounting Science, CA things.
Was it one of the selected ones?
No.
One of them
so everything that I got rejected for provisionally, I got accepted for after I was done, right? So then I had law, I had economic science, I think, and then I had accounting science, right? So I got accepted for the 3. And then for law, I applied for law. Me and my twin both applied for law, but he was doing science, I was doing commerce, right? But we both applied for law just for the thing, if we were to choose to do law, then everyone asks you, are you guys twins? They're like, no, we're not twins, we're brothers-in-law, right? So, like, that was the only reason we applied for law, right? So, so it was really a choice between economic science and accounting science. And at that point, I was looking for bursaries, and someone came through and said, look, we might have something, but only if you do accounting science, right? So, and anyways, as a commerce kid, where I come from, the biggest thing you're told about is accounting science, is you're going to be a chartered accountant. No other careers. Career exhibition is go BSCA, right? And so I enrolled for that. I did it first year. I did accounting science. I got into Golden Key with my accounting science marks, right? So in first year, right? So no, first year I was there, man. I was within.
Hey, okay.
Yeah, problem started end of second year. That's when it got tricky, because I eventually only switched to a BCom in 2019. Right. So for those who've not been up to date with my academic journey, I spent 5 years in a 3-year degree.
Yeah. And that is absolutely normal.
I really took my time with it. Ingoma nandiya pinned.
No, but before we dwell into the university space and everything that it imposes on someone. I wanted to understand how much of a deal it is from where you come from for you to at a university. I know at Mamelodi there's only a few of us, so it's a big deal for someone to make it to get to university, let alone stay and then graduate. How much of a deal was it for you from Mokopane?
Well, to put it into perspective, me and my twin are the only people from my school who came to Wits. Right. And before us, there was a gap of about 5 years from the last person who came to Wits. Right.
Yo.
So literally you can number the people from my school who came there. Right. So it's quite a gap. But there were people from other schools around who came to Wits, but from my school, we're the only two people that came here. And of course, going to varsity in a community, especially Kokasi, like it's very visible. You went to varsity, right? Because so few people get to varsity, right? And it's that thing where few people get to varsity, right? And because few people get to varsity, you're very visible. You go to varsity, it's like, oh, we love varsity. You get what I'm saying? So that's the thing. So I mean that everyone knows you've gone to varsity because few people get there. Because I mean getting to matric already is a hurdle. I'm sorry. So like getting to matric is a hurdle. Getting to grade 11 is a hurdle. Grade 9 was like a filter. The jump from grade 9 to grade 10 was literally a filter in my school. Because we had someone who was like 21, 23 in my grade 9 class. Right? Because it was such a filter. And are you there?
Oh, sorry about that. Yes.
Oh yeah. So it was quite a filter. So I mean, we were like a handful of people that actually got to varsity. That's why when you meet someone from back home at varsity, it's kind of like that. Whoa, like hey, you get happy. Because I mean, I think my first 2 years at varsity, I'd always have these moments where I'm walking on campus and I see someone who looks similar to someone I knew from back home, right? And at that moment, you want to get excited, but at the same time, you're like, wait, but this is not possible because there's literally no chance, right? Because that person was, you last left them at grade 10 or something. So, and then that sort of, it really did change the way I saw life and appreciate the opportunity because I met so many people over the years who looked like people that I knew. And it would always pain me to be like, yo, if I can see someone who looks like them on campus, chances are in another world with better resources and better opportunity, they might have made it here. Because Kokasi, it's not always about someone doesn't want to read the books. There are so many issues, right? That's why the social issues. Mara kanete, life is tough, Kokasi. Life is just tough.
Now let's talk about your first year. You get to men's rest. Please describe the first semester of your first year. You did say that you were flourishing. What are some of the work? What it contributed to your work ethic and you eventually flourishing and getting into Golden Key? Did you get here? Were you prepped enough before, or what was it about you that made you nail first semester especially?
I mean, first semester especially because first semester had the highest peak. Second semester had a bit of sprinkle of fees must fall. So there was some mark droppage somewhere, but we still made it. I think in the first semester, what I did, I came a week before we opened for a pre-university accounting program that was done by the school or one of the lecturers there. So that sort of like got me used to the environment. Okay, you have a 45-minute class, a 15-minute lecture. And at that point, because the rest was not open, we were staying at Banato, right? So I got to create a routine. Here's Phenyo coming from Limpopo, Ujakasi. I'm here. I keep a Papela Joburg. I'm not, I don't know a lot of people. I don't know a lot of places. So there's no need for me to be gallivanting. So after class, I go to my room. I try to recap on what I learned, try to pre-read for the next day. So I had like a set routine, right? That was the week before. And when that program ended, I was one of the top 5. Well, there was like a top learner in each class. And so I tied first place in my class and then eventually got it because of the extra participation points because Kiwa Tata. So then that set the tone for me to be like, okay, if you work hard, you'll get a reward, right? And from when that week ended, then I had to move to res, right? And orientation week started, and that was different. I feel I would have been more academic if I didn't go through O week, right? I would have been more academic if I hadn't gone through that O week, because it really changed a lot. Like, it changed a lot. Suddenly, it moves from being about the degree and being at Wits to being about, the jubilee, the sunny side, there's this, there's management, there's this. So it really did mess with my mindset a bit, going into res and res culture and stuff. But I mean, when I look back, it presented me with unique challenges, right? Because although had I not been there, I would have probably went straight academic, full force, right? But being in a space where you are challenged and you face so many issues, especially at the Red House, right? There's no way you leave that place the same. There is literally no way. You will be exposed to
I'm not sure if that's a good thing.
Right. I mean, looking back at my experience, right? Because remember, and now I'm speaking from the perspective of when I got to men's res as like a first year student, right? And not once you go into leadership and stuff. But it's an accelerator. It's an accelerator because you get there and there are so many issues, right? There's so many issues. You find that, like, now there's someone shouting at you, freshman, push up position, and you're like, what is going on, right? And you're there like, what's going on? I just arrived. They're like, push up position, freshman this, freshman that, freshman this, and you're like, what's going on? But then you go with the flow, right? You go with the flow, trying to see, is this a movie? What's going on? Are there lessons to this? And I mean, in as much as it was quite overwhelming
Intensive.
bit and intense, right? Over time, I realized that I would not be the same person. I wouldn't be as outspoken, right? Because at some point you start to question, right? When you're put in an environment where you're supposed to just follow, something in you is going to be like, no, this is where the line is. So it kind of, that environment helped me draw the line. I'm not saying it's a perfect environment. No. It's not a perfect environment, which is why we went into House Committee to try and change the environment, right? But other than that, like, it was such a different experience, and it really challenged me a lot. Because then you can't avoid politics when you're there. You can't avoid social issues because you see them, right? So, yeah. And then... Before
I ask my next question, can we just recognize the presence of the Dean of Students? A whole Jerome September is on a Yale Village video. I'm not sure if he's following me or us or you, but he is here.
We recognize the Dean of Deans, Mr. Jerome September. We recognize leadership, people who give. Have you had a Jerome speech? Sorry to just hijack the conversation, but have you had a Jerome speech? Like, have you? Like,
no, I'll hear it. My next question, Mabokela, this is our house.
Okay.
You are a guest. Yes, you mentioned that in first year you were able to get to Golden Key.
Yeah.
Now, we understand that getting there already is a form of pressure, I'd say, because you don't just get there. It's like the top 15% of the people in your degree. Now, getting that and then going on to fail in second year. Did it make the failure more intense because now you are in Golden Key? You are expected to know better. To whom much is given, much is expected.
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't know what Golden Key was until I got invited, right? And then you get there and you're like, what? Right? And there was a certain image of Phenyo in first year, right? So for instance, I used to be a lot like study and pre-read. I didn't have much of a social life. I think also I was too broke for a social life, you know. So like it was just books and going to church, and you see. So then it sort of like also built a bit of a reputation, because there were some courses that I would be fairly good at, and sometimes I'd help other people as well. And so, I mean, at some point I was having conversations. You know that you are moving on course when you start having questions coming from the Indian people also, oh, Phenyo, how do we do this? Then okay, we're moving on course, right? It's a bad measure, but I'm just, right? And imagine getting into Golden Key and now everyone's like, whoa, wow, so you smart, right? and then going on to fail at the end of the year. First failure in your life, right? And it's big because it's like you went up this hill and everyone was like, oh wow, and then right? And to make it even more pressuring, right, is that at the end of second year, I applied, I'd already stood up for the Golden Key Executive Committee, right? And as well as House Committee. So I made it into both of them, right? And making it into both, and then you're expected...
Wait, clarity. Yeah? You made it into both of them after failing?
Usually
the failure came during...
Results came in December, right? And around September, October, that's when we had elections and stuff, right? So, yeah. So, I mean, you just make
now, wait.
Yeah?
To add on to the pressure, you are now sitting with a transcript that says fail, and next year you are to be in executive of Golden Key and House Committee.
True. You are going to be in leadership, right? And there you are, right? It seemed like a whole bittersweet, because here you are with these accolades piling up, but at the same time something's eating you, because now you have to deal with failure, right? And you know, it's kind of overwhelming, because then you have like an imposter syndrome. They're like, do I really deserve to be on this committee? Was it maybe a mistake? Did they maybe call me by mistake? You know? And also there's other implications like bursaries, right? So then I also made it into Ellen Gray in 2018. So now here's a year where you made it into House Committee.
Context.
Yeah?
Context, what's Ellen Gray? For those who don't know, what is Ellen Gray?
So the Ellen Gray Orbis Foundation seeks to identify individuals with potential for high impact entrepreneurship, and it really takes you into a program where they will, throughout the journey of your degree, they will groom you into being a high impact entrepreneur, provide you with all the resources, the financial support, the support of mentors and everything. Brilliant. And it's a very rigorous selection process. I think it had like 3 stages, right? And so now that's the Ellen Gray Orbis Foundation.
Ellen Gray must hire you. That's a PR answer. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, and then
so you get Ellen Gray as well.
There's Ellen Gray. There's Golden Key Executive Committee. There's House Committee. At Men's Res, right? I mean, what a mix! Imagine mixing Golden Key with Men's Res House Committee. And so it was kind of.
Are you trying to tell us something?
No, I'm just saying, like, it's in public perception, it's a clash, right? And then there it is. It seems like everything is going well for you, but then you're dealing with failure, and failure just it eats you, right? It eats you inside. For some people, they'll be like, "Nah, but it's just one course, you know. You're gonna be fine. You've got this. You've got this. You've got this." So it really threw in a lot of imposter syndrome, because they're like, "Yo, did I really deserve all of these things? Right? Am I really who I think I am?" Right. So failure does that. You know, some failure can either cause you to doubt yourself. It can either maybe sometimes even cause you to halt, you know, and not be as ambitious, right? To silence you, right? So that was going into like 2018, which was the year where I had to deal with the failure from 2017.
Yeah. But then also, before failure reflects itself on a transcript, you see it. You fail tutorials, you fail assignments, you fail. In those moments, what measures were you doing to kind of prevent it so that it doesn't reflect on the transcript? And I'm asking this because sometimes we really try. We really try, we reach out and everything, but still, when it's a fail, it's a fail. So what are some of the things that you did in that moment just to at least prevent it from it getting to where it eventually got on the transcript?
You know, I'd be lying if I said I had like fixed things I'd do. I was just trying my best, you know, because I failed several times. That was my first failure. So in my first failure, like, it's not like I was distracted or anything. Like, I was genuinely just trying my best. But you mean, you know, there are some things that you start doing that sort of derail you a bit, but it was nothing too hectic, right? So for me, it was just trying my best. You fail a test, try get it off your mind, try focus on the next one. But it was really challenging, you know. The course was just really challenging, coupled with the bad habits, because in first year you know, when you come with that, oh, like, I know this, you know, I'm good, you know, I'm good, I know this and stuff. And in first year, I could get away a lot with not like studying some stuff and studying them like just a few days before and stuff like that. I mean, there was a point where I studied for a test on the day, right? It was, I think we're writing around 12 or 2, and I started studying around 9 a.m. I pulled out with a 90, right? So you can imagine like what that does. It's like you're just like, you know what, I can do this, right?
It relaxes you.
It relaxes you. And I went into second year with that relaxed thing, and I could get away with it with other courses. But there was this one course which just couldn't get away with it. You know, I just couldn't get away with
code. What's the course code? People must prepare themselves for that course.
It was FINEC 2.
What's the course code?
It was FINEC 2. Yeah, it was FINEC 2. You know.
You mentioned that it was your first failure, and I'm thinking now with first years also, they may be had experienced their first failure from the first semester. You've been there, and you did tell us how you felt when you were in that position. How would you advise someone who has encountered their first failure, whether or not they are in first year? What are some of the things that you did during that time that you would advise against now?
At first, I'd advise against attaching your marks to your worth or to your intelligence. Right? It took me a while to learn that my marks were not a reflection of my intelligence or my abilities, but rather a reflection of the knowledge that I had of a certain subject at that point in time. So if I go into a test, a mathematics test, and I fail, you might find that I failed largely because trigonometry was a huge chunk and I was bad with trigonometry. It did not mean that I was bad with mathematics as a whole.
Mathematics as a whole,
right?
True.
And it's that thing where now the attachment, right, that I had, because I used to think that I'm only as good as my marks, right? And who could blame me? Bursaries want your marks. You know, bursaries want your marks. Everything wants your marks. And then it gets to a point where you see that they're so important, you might as well tie them to your value, to your worth, to say, if I'm getting low marks, I'm not so good as a student, right? But I had to get out of that mindset. So I would advise someone, don't attach the marks to your ability or to your intelligence, because they're only a measure of where you were at that point in time. So for instance, you might be here and you failed your June exam. That June exam was a reflection of the knowledge you had as at June 20th, 2021. Between June 20th, 2021, you might have had conversations with friends about the certain topic. You might have read up on it. You might have done something on it that puts you at a different place, that if you were to write the same test that you wrote then, but you were to write it now, it would be totally different, right? And we need to recognize that there's always that gap of growth, right? So recognize that there is a gap of growth and that the past only reflects where you were then, right? And that for me was one of the major lessons, because that led to so many things. Because I was failing, then I thought I was not as good as a student, then imposter syndrome, then you doubt, then you're no longer as ambitious, then you stop wanting to try. Then you start getting scared of the course. Then when you have to study, you study other courses and not the ones that challenge you. You become fearful, right? So I'd say that, like, detach yourself. Your marks are your marks. You are you. Your intelligence is your intelligence. You can always change your marks, but your marks can never change you. It only seems that way in our minds. Your marks can never change you. You got to varsity because you deserve to be here and you have the potential, right? And it's just a pity that so many things want marks that we end up thinking that we are those marks.
True. Sure. Now, you mentioned that bursaries wanted you. You mentioned that you were in the golden key. You got the averages that were needed, to get you into the right places and position yourself well. Now, I'm thinking in that moment, your family is also proud of you. So the family pressure. Now, when you fail, and you also have a twin, are there degrees of comparisons from the family? And also, how do you explain an RET to your grandmother?
Ish. True. I mean, I'll tell you the truth. As a twin, as an identical twin, for those who don't know or who might not have twins and stuff, you get compared. It's as if you're being compared from the day you were born. Everyone will ask questions like, who's the smarter twin and stuff like that. And people don't really recognize it. that they're doing that, but they put so much pressure on you to be competitive at anything. If he plays soccer, oh, do you play soccer? Oh, are you good at this? Oh, he makes music. Do you make music? Right? So there's so much comparison. So at that point, I'm already used to being compared, because at the end of each term in primary school and high school, they take both your report cards and they put them next to each other. Right? So it was always competitive. Right? And obviously then you get to varsity and I failed. Right? And I think I was the first one to repeat among the both of us, right? And mind you, here's Phenyo, who in my head, I was like the good news kid, right? Because there you are with the awards, with this, and then suddenly, poof, right? So obviously there will be those degrees of comparison that are there to say, oh, so, are you going to finish the degree, right? Because, as twins, you want to do everything. You want to finish at the same time, because it's just it puts less pressure.
Natural.
Right? It's just natural progression, right? But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But there was that pressure. I think I only told my parents later on, right? And that was the first failure was like a blow to me. Even though at first it was very supportive to be like, look, look at your other marks, this. But because I attached so much value to those marks, right? And I knew deep down that I could have done better. Because when you fail, you also do this thing where you look back at everything and you're like, if I hadn't done that, if I hadn't spent a night doing that, if I wasn't at that party, if I hadn't done this, all of which are irrelevant at that point. All you're doing is just stressing yourself, right? So the pressure was there to say, now you're failing. Funding, ain't nobody got the money for vets fees, right? So it puts that pressure on you. And mind you, that was just the first failure. That was not the part where I got excluded, which is a whole other story.
We are still coming there. Yeah, we are still coming there. At what point now did you stop feeling pity for yourself? Because you did mention that the effects of having to fail is that now you doubt yourself. I'm assuming in the positions that you were in, you are thinking, I shouldn't be more robust in house conversations. Perhaps I should lie low a bit because now I have this failure that I need to deal with. So at what point did you stop feeling pity for yourself and then started showing up and taking the challenge to now repeat the modules, pass them, go through them?
I think a lot of the change came a lot of the change for me came at the end of 2018, jumping into 2019, right? Because I'm not gonna lie, 2018 was a terrible year for me. It was really a terrible year. I was repeating academically. There was the pressure of leadership, and leadership also puts in that position where you're expected to be bold, strong, have everything under control, right? And there are people coming to you, there are first years coming to you for guidance, for advice, people seeing your accolades who look up to you. But at the same time, you're dealing with your own demons on the side. You're dealing with repeating, you're dealing with that. And at the same time, there were also some family issues because that's the same year my parents separated. So there's just a lot going on. And I think, to be honest, I spent most of 2018 outside of class than inside class. Right. I think that's the year I also started writing poetry again. That's how tough the year was. If you see someone writing poetry, you know.
Okay, now I'll take note. Okay, I'm struggling to hear you now. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I was just turning on Do Not Disturb. Someone was trying to get a call through.
Phenyo, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Yes, so I wanted to ask, there are systems in place to help students, for them to reach out. We've got TCD, we've got course advisors, mentors, Did you ever reach out, and to who, and was it easy? Because I've heard my fair share of failure as well, but reaching out was the last thing on my mind. When I thought CCDU, I think there's a stigma attached to it. Once you attended, there's you're ostracized somehow in people's eyes, so I didn't want that. And also I didn't believe in talking to someone, a stranger, all those stigmas that are attached with attending things like therapy. So Did you reach out? Was it easy? And to whom did you reach out to?
Look, I'm going to be honest with you, right? Like you said, we're vulnerable here. Look, I only reached out when I was at dying point, right? I only reached out when I was at dying point. Because for most of the year, man, I tried the alcohol. I tried the always being at vibes just to keep that positive energy, right? And I'm not gonna lie to you, right? I only reached out when I was at death point, right? Because those moments do come. I've been there too, right? There was a point where I just felt numb and I felt like, you know what, this life just ain't it, right? This life just ain't it. I've been there, right? That's why when I can, right now, if I'm having a conversation with someone, right, and maybe I'm checking up on them or something, I can literally tell in the first 15 to 30 seconds of our conversation that someone's not okay, because I've been there, even if you're trying to front, because I believe that there's no one who could front better than me, because I was going through the most. But ask anyone who met me in 2018 in class somewhere else, they'll tell you that I was happy, I was active. Go back to the people I was in the same Alan Gray group with, they'll tell you energetic, heavily involved. Do you get what I'm saying? No one would say this guy was just felt like life wasn't it, right? So I did reach out eventually, right? I broke down, right? I had a breakdown. I had a breakdown at the dean's office. Then I was referred to CCTU, right? And I started.
Is it the reason why the dean was here?
No. He's a no. It's not that. So it did happen then. It did happen then, and I went there to CCTU, and I started consulting there. And you know, I used to have a different perception of them, right? Until I actually went there. And I mean, it could go with who you find there, but the person that I found there, my counselor, it was really great. Like, I think I met with her for about 4 to 6 weeks and stuff like that, right? I also did telephone counseling. Before it was, you know, now it's called the Vets Crisis Line, right? Which I think is a terrible name, because I don't think it's a crisis line per se, but I kind of get why they would call it a crisis line, but it's actually telephonic counseling with ICAs, right? And you don't, saying crisis line puts that stigma again, right? The same one that CCTU is people going there when you have troubles and stuff. Mental health is not a thing. I learned through my consultation there that it was never about going there when you have problems, because when you go there when you're full of problems, there's very little someone can do, because you get there and you expect that whatever comes out of their mouth must be a solution to your problem, right?
True.
Whereas it's a journey, right? And so I did reach out. I did go through CCDU. I did go through ICAS. You know, I did reach out to, you know, faculty staff. I mean, at the end of 2018, I got excluded, right? And so 2019 was my recovery year, right? And it took all of that. It took me learning to open up to people, to like talk to people that I know about what I was going through, right? Also the counseling on the side, poetry helped a bit, because I could then journal down like what I felt and express it and share it and stuff. So, I mean, I did reach out. I reached out when I feel like it was not too late, but a lot of damage was already done, which is why I'd always encourage people to like start earlier, right? You don't need to reach out to your friend, to your family, to that, because also there's also those thoughts of, what will people think? What will my family think? Right? What will these people think? Oh, if I fail, this is what will happen. We put so many scenarios in our heads, and then they end up burdening us. Things that probably will never happen. When I thought of the conversation of talking to my parents about, I got excluded, and having to explain them and stuff, it was a horrible, the vision I had in my head, it was so horrible. It was so terrible, you know. It had people crying everywhere, and hope was lost in everything, right? But it didn't even turn out like that, right? And I mean, looking at what's been happening and where I've been after that, I can say, like, look, it's not as bad as you think it is. It is bad, but it's never as bad as you think it is, because your thoughts are limitless. So if you create something scary, you will create something that is very scary, because you know your fears and insecurities.
True. I'm so glad that you mentioned CCDU and you speak about it in such a positive light. I think it's messages that need to be amplified. And I think it's things that leaders, Housecom members, that people in the Golden Key, people in the SRC should normalize doing, so that we change the stigma around CCDU. You keep referencing an exclusion, and I'm wondering, is this race exclusion, academic exclusion, or both?
Oh, I've seen both.
How did you get over that?
I've seen both.
Okay, indulge us.
2018, towards the end of the year, right? I got excluded, like academically, right? So I had to appeal, WRC1 in January when everything's happening and when you're stressed.
Wait. Let's be slow nyana for first years. What's the outcome that says you are excluded?
I got MR and M, right? There's so many.
Okay, and what?
It's minimum requirements.
What does that mean?
Minimum requirements not met.
Okay, and then what's the next step? As a first year, if I get that in at the end of the year, what's next for me?
The next step is,
firstly, I'm excluded from res. I'm excluded from school.
Yeah, I mean, when you see that on your transcript, res PCD is what res needs. They need PCD, not complex things. Once you see complex things on your transcript, chances are you'll also need to reappeal for res and everything, right?
So let's still carry our first years as well. So PCD means permitted to proceed. So you can go to the next year of study. You are not repeating, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
you can go to the next year of
continue.
study. And then so from there, then I had to go look at the codes, the outcome codes, right? That's the only time you look for outcome codes. It's when things are tough. Because the simple things, it's PCD and Q if you go straight, right? So when something's gone terribly wrong, right? So that's when then I had to look up, okay, so what does this mean? And then I found that it meant that I'd have to send an appeal, right? An appeal to a committee and to say, look, this is me. These are my challenges. These are my problems. Please readmit me. Please take me back. I can do better, right?
Wait. You talk about a committee. I'm familiar with res exclusion. So with res is ARSC.
Yeah.
With academic exclusion, which committee is this?
It's the WRC, the Vets Readmissions Committee. Right.
All right.
And they have different sittings.
You can continue.
So you have your WRC1, which is the first appeal, where you write your motivation, you attach supporting documents, and you send it in, and they look through it, and then your past records, and they make a decision, right? To either readmit you or not readmit you. Then there's WRC2. So if you fail, if on that one, they're like, nah, based on your motivation and your supporting documents, we don't think you should be readmitted. You have a second chance to appeal, which is WRC2. But that one, you will come in person and you have to explain, So fortunately for me, I got back in WRC1, right? Okay. So I sent everything. I had my attachments. I had my letters from CCTU. I had my letters from the counseling company, or now known as the Vets Crisis Line. I had everything. I had my motivation. I did explain everything that was there and everything. And fortunately, I got back, right? But still, at the same time, that it really takes a blow on you, right? Because after a record-breaking year where you were seen to be all that, then poof, right? So confidence was at an all-time low. Prospects of the future at an all-time low, because then I got dropped by my bursary and Ellen Gray, right? So you understand, it feels like your whole life is shattering, right? It feels like your whole life is shattering, right? And
now,
yeah,
you are mentioning, res and the committees, they're different, right? So talk to me about the duration it takes for them to get that to you, because I'm very familiar with that one of ARSD. They will respond 3 days before school commences. In that period, the emotions that you go through, because you are in suspense. You're not sure if the appeal is going to be granted, because you appealing doesn't guarantee that it's going to be granted.
True.
Talk to me about the emotional turmoil because of the suspense of that as well. And also, it's different councils. One can say, okay, we approve, and the other one can say no.
Yeah, true. I mean, look, the emotions are real, because this all happens in January, right? Now, January, no one's thinking about school, right? And some people are registering and stuff like that, and there you are waiting, right? Waiting to get your outcome, right? You're on your knees every day. Well, at least I was. You're on your knees every day. You are praying, right? You are sleeping, and you wake up with a dream right? And you wake up after having a dream where you had not failed but passed.
It was approved.
Like it just messes with
Or it was approved.
Or it was approved, right? And every one of those days you keep thinking, am I gonna go back to vets? Is this the end of it? Have I failed with the degree? Could I have done better? Like it really puts you in this reflective state where you reflect on anything. I was reflecting on whether the people I kept around me were the right kind of people, right? I mean, looking at it, I'm a very outspoken person, or that's who I became when I got to vets, right? And you have to understand that a lot of people knew me, right? A lot of people knew me, and then I started thinking, does it all matter now that a lot of people knew me and stuff like that? Because if I had gotten excluded and stayed at home, they probably would have moved on with their lives, would have forgotten about me, would have found a new person to be like, oh, this person reminds me of Phenyo. You know, Phenyo used to be out there and everything. Yeah, we don't know what happened to him, right? And I started seeing different. I started seeing that, you know, a lot of the things that I thought mattered don't really matter.
They don't matter.
What people thought about me, all these responsibilities and everything, the first priority is your academics and your development, right? And so if I'm being in leadership, I'm only in leadership to the extent that it grows me, and I am not to go above and beyond if it destroys me, right? Because what I then did wrong was, as this pressure was mounting up, I kept taking on more and more responsibilities, right? Academically, leadership-wise.
Wait. I lost you there. Can you please go back a bit?
Okay, I was saying that I took on a lot of like responsibilities, right? Leadership, business-wise, academically. So there was just a lot taking from me, but I never got the time to actually look at Phenyo. How is Phenyo doing? How is Phenyo feeling? What is going through Phenyo's mind, right? And like at that point, I started reflecting on all of those. Right? Was it really worth it? Will anyone remember me? And then I realized at the end of the day, no one cares unless you graduate. Like it's just facts. Like, and there were so many eye-opening moments for me. I remember there was a time I was having a conversation with one of the staff members, right? And we're just talking about, because after that I got passionate about support for leadership, right? And I was having a conversation with one of the staff to say, look, what are we doing for leaders? Like, what are you doing for leaders? Leaders are going through academic stress. They're going through emotional stress. You get firsthand to talk to people about their issues. When people get excluded, they come to you. When people have social issues, they come to you. Personally, in the time that I've been at VETS, I've been on like 3 suicide calls, talking to people who are on the edge of committing suicide. At one point, I had someone in my hand who needed their medication, which is across campus, and they were shaking, and I could feel like their soul is just leaving them. That is traumatic experiences, right? That you have. Adversity, getting a call from someone saying, I'm at the edge of the window, right? Like those things, they happen to leaders, especially because you are seen to be the first people to be contacted, right? And when you look at all that, I was having a conversation with them, and then somewhere in that conversation, they were telling me about this one girl, you know, who used to be so enthusiastic. I think at some point she was in the ARC. They're like, she was so involved, you know, she loved her work. She was on time. She did this. And then I asked, I was like, oh, okay, what happened to her? You know, they're like, yo, I don't know. I don't think she finished. And the conversation continued. And it hit me. It hit me at that moment that it doesn't matter what contribution you make to like other people or the institution as well. Not that it's bad. It is good. But you need to identify, right, and know that you are the main priority at that institution. You are there for a purpose, right? And you have to prioritize yourself. I had to learn to prioritize my mental health. I had to learn to prioritize my academics. It was not an easy journey. I needed a lot of support. I got friends to support. In my final year, my final year, I had a friend who would hold me accountable to my study routine. Right. Literally, because I figured I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I'm not very accountable when it came to academics. So I had to have someone help me with that. I had to learn to be honest with myself, to know that if I'm not putting in the work, I can't expect a great outcome. Studying 7 out of 12 chapters and hoping that you get through that exam is childish. It's very childish. And I had to like have those conversations with myself to say, Phenyo, in all honesty, how did you expect to miss class for a whole semester and come out on top?
And then expect the bad.
You see?
True.
And we could blame anything. And at the end of the day, we can blame lecturers. We can blame the support structure offered to student leaders. We can blame anything. But at the end of the day, it's your future. It is your future. And it was a reality I had to take in to say, in as much as I had given to people, to the institution, I also had to give to myself, right? Which is why I had to learn to limit. I had to learn how to say no, right? I had to learn to draw the line. And I mean, my experiences might have been terrible, but they really helped me a lot, right? Because since my 2018 experience, I've been able to find other people who were going on a similar path and help them with my experience, right? From my experience, I was able to say, okay, this is what you need to do, right? Even this year, right? Early this year, I was having my own struggles of my own, but it's that thing. People are appealing, people are writing motivations. Then I'm there, I'm reading, I'm helping them structure it and stuff like that. But all those things, like, they sort of helped me, but it also brings reflection. And you don't need to wait to fail to get that reflection, right? Like, you don't need to fail to get that reflection. But if you did fail, right, and you're in first year and it seems like everything is going south, or you're in second year or third year, right, and it seems like all your colleagues are graduating, they're starting their jobs and everything, right, that pressure does come to you. I was in the same final year class as my freshmen and freshers. So I finished at the same point as the first years who I initiated, who came in
orientated,
right? I finished in the same year as them. Fortunately for me, I was not one of those seniors who would then say, you're going to fail, you're going to what. So humility goes a long way, right? I know it's not a study tactic or what, but humility. Be humble. Varsity is an unpredictable experience. Be humble.
Sure.
Be humble. It really goes a long way, because I could be in the same class as my first years. I could greet them in class. I could ask questions in class, because then I had to learn that I am a student, right? That I am a student. Bottom line, I am a student, right? I might have taken longer. I might have failed this. At the end of the day, I'm a student. If you are repeating a course or a module, you are not a repeater. Take it as if you just started that course, because there's a reason you failed it. There's a reason you failed it. So I had to come to terms with that, to say, Phenyo, there's a reason you failed, which is why you're in this class. So learn again. That's another skill for coming back from failure. Learn to learn again. Don't assume that you have the knowledge. Learn to learn again. Be humble. Take notes again. Take notes again. Write again. Ask questions in class again. Stand at the front of the lecture and ask the lecturer questions again and again and again. Right? Because other than that, you're only disadvantaging yourself. If you don't go to class because you're afraid of how people will see you, you're losing the value of being in class. If you don't go to tutorials, you are losing the value of that. You will lose value in everything that you cut out. For what? For an image. To be seen as someone who has it all together. I think we need to be comfortable with being broken, right? And failing. Be comfortable with people seeing that you are imperfect. I had high standards for myself. I had high standards of perfection, to say, you are Phenyo, you are inspiring, you are this. Like, you can't, do you understand? But I had to let those go and be like, wait, no, this is part of my story, right? My failure is part of my story. It doesn't make me any less inspiration. It doesn't make me any less competent, any less intelligent. It just is what it is. It's my journey. I embrace it, and I'm going to go through with it, right? And it is hard. It is hard to come back from failure. It is challenging. But it's failure. It's not going to get any easier, right? And most of the battle is here. It's in your head and in your heart, right? Because honestly speaking, if most people who failed were given the option to study the very same thing they failed in a completely new class where no one would know them, they wouldn't feel as under pressure. which tells you that the challenge does not come from the failure itself, but from how we perceive, how others will perceive us for failing, how our family will perceive us, right? How we perceive ourselves, how our friends will perceive us. So, yeah, I mean, I know I went in a lot on that one, but
Very profound, very profound. I was about to ask also, you mentioned some of the things that one can practically do when you are in that class again, repeating, take the notes, ask the questions again. But then I wanted to speak about the mental preparation side of it. We've just come out of a first semester, but we got our results on Friday, latest, I think, for a majority of us. And for me, I feel like it's not enough time between results date and the start of a new semester now, but I have to hop, because if I don't hop, new resources are being uploaded there.
True.
So the mental shift now, how does one approach the second semester after experiencing failure in the first semester, and it takes only a weekend for you to recover? Not only that, to deregister certain courses, re-register some, all the admin that goes
into
failing.
it.
How do you then mentally prepare yourself for that?
I mean, the best way to deal with failure is to deal with it, right? That's the opening line, because most of the time, in my experience, I tried not to deal with it. I was on some, but it was a 49. I was close. It's not that bad, and just move on. I just brushed it off. But here's the thing: you need to be able to hold yourself accountable, right? And be honest with yourself. I feel like a lot of things start when you're honest with yourself. Once you receive that fail mark, you either have a choice. Either you're going to reflect on it, or you're going to mize it or brush it over, right? And when you brush it over, you're going to move on. It's going to seem like you're good, right? Until then, you have to study for the next test of that course. And when you're trying to study, you feel like you're scared, or you feel anxious about that course, right? So, like you said, results came out not so long ago, right? And the time span is brief. But you don't have to deal with it all in one day, right? It's important to acknowledge how you feel. It's important to release how you feel, right? And to make time to go through it. It's one thing I learned when I was going through the telephone counseling. The lady I was counseling with, I don't forget her name. I was there. She taught me how to make time to deal with things. Literally making. There was a point where exams were coming up, and I was telling her about issues at home. I was telling her about issues academically, issues in leadership. And she was like, okay, Phenyo, what's coming up right now? And I was like, I'm writing exams in 2 weeks. And she's like, okay, let's start with that, right? You've got exams coming up in 2 weeks. How can you prepare for that? And this is the logic behind it. If I did not focus on what is in front of me and dealing with that, chances are I would have remained sad and down, and that would have meant I would not study for those tests. And now failing those tests add to the existing load that's there. It's kind of like,
True.
It's kind of like finding out you failed, and you don't want to process the emotions correctly, so you block them out. And then as you try to block them out, you are unable to study for the next test. Then you fail those tests. Now it seems like it's a trend, right? So one of the things that I would say, make time for it. If it means writing on your calendar on Tuesday, I'm just gonna just let it out. I'm gonna talk to someone about it. A friend, can be a friend. Tell someone how I feel about failing, because what you don't say to someone else, there's this saying, a problem shared is a problem halved, right? Once you share a problem, you've cut it in half. You've offloaded it on someone else. And the more you talk about it, the less stigma you have for that thing, right? The more you talk about, oh, I failed. Oh yeah, I failed the first semester. Because the secrecy is what kills us, right? Because the secrecy preserves the perfect image. And now everywhere you go, you're like, yo, I failed. And they're like, yo, you failed. Nah, it's impossible. And then you think that, oh, sure, so I'm not supposed to fail, right? So normalize talking about your weaknesses, like your failures. Talk to your friends. Tell them, look, this course taught me, I'm really scared, and I don't want to fail it next semester, right? Because once you talk about it with someone, they might not be able to give you the solution, but then you have some freedom to say, I've let this out. It's not eating me out inside. So find an outlet, right? Find an outlet for those emotions, for that fail that you got. And failure is not only getting below 50. Failure can be getting 75 if your goal was 80 or if your goal was 85. Because whether we realize it or not, the person who gets 80 while they were aiming for 100, and the person who gets 50 while they were aiming for 60, and the person who gets 20 while they were aiming for 50, they will all experience the same consequences of failure. So if I wanted to get into a university, right? Let's say in a university abroad, and that university required 75. If I get 60, I will feel like a failure because I've not reached that goal. But people will say, yo, but you're doing okay. You know, you get what I'm saying? And for you, you will feel the pains. The same way the person just wanted 50, but they got 40. You will still feel the same pain because both of you have failed, right? And I know this speaks to a minority group, but someone might be here and they're like, look, I've not failed, but why do I feel like a failure? And they don't understand why. It's because failure is not being able to meet your goals. That's what failure is. You had a target, you did not meet it, right? You had a target, you did not meet it, you will feel like failure. It will feel bad. And don't let people gaslight it by saying, but it's a 60. You know, it's like 60. You are fine. There are people who got 40s. No, that person still feels the same amount of pain as that other person, right? So you do have to bring it in, right? You bring it into the light. And also with that, it's good to, you know, apart from like sharing about the failure and normalizing it and letting people know, because once you let people know, it no longer haunts you, right? Once I put it up that, hey, I was excluded and everyone knows, I don't have to worry about what anyone thinks. I can focus on what needs to be done, right?
True.
So once it's not a secret that I failed, it's fine. I don't have to worry about, oh, what is someone thinking about me and stuff like that, right? But the more you keep something a secret and you know that your challenge is how people perceive you, it's going to keep eating you up because you're always going to try to preserve the image, right? You're going to focus on looking like you are okay or looking like you're passing and not have time to focus on actually doing the things that help you pass. Actually doing the study. Right? So it's always important to be honest with yourself. Like practical speaking, be honest with it. Give yourself time to let it out. Talk to someone. Share about it. Right? And like just, yeah.
Before I move on to my next question, let me recognize again a PhD graduate from our house. He's probably gonna now tease me for this or perhaps scold me for it. Dr. Desmond is here. We recognize your presence there and we welcome you as well. Yeah, we recognize people who got belts. So everyone else, we do see you there. We do. You touch on the secrecy that students normalize when it comes to failing. We don't talk about it. I remember when I experienced my failure in first year, I was shocked when I was appealing and then the stats say it's over 60% of first years at Yale Village. And I'm like, oh, where was the 60%? Because I went through December and there I thought I was alone. True. And at that point, I'm seeing my counterparts are enjoying. The people whom I saw appealing with me, they were out here having a good time in December. They didn't seem to worry about it that much, you know. And I think for me, it was because I thought everyone else was okay. And then you start asking yourself, is it because now I take it too seriously or people know what they have got connections, whether or not they fail, it's not too much of a big deal to them. But that support also, I think it's needed from peer to peer. You know, when someone says something and they're not your peer or perhaps they're not faced with the same circumstances you are being faced, it doesn't land as it would shall someone who's in the same position also disclose that. I wanted you to engage us on how did failure affect your social life, because you did mention that you didn't have much of it in first year, but then now being in house comm meant you did at some point attend house parties and you didn't have to buy the ticket as well. Yes. There were other things that forced you to be social. Now that you did experience failure, did you hold back? Did you now, how did the failure affect your social life? Let me just not answer you that much.
The failure worked the other way for me, right? So what it did is I became more social, right? Because surrounding yourself, being in those spaces, at those parties, surrounded by people, just gave the vibe that, oh, this person is chilled. If they were not okay, they wouldn't be at a party. If they were not okay, they wouldn't be this. So then it would help me create that image of everything is okay, right? So I became more social, but very distant. So you could talk to me about almost anything, but I would never talk to you about the things that really matter. So I could have conversations, but they were always on the surface. I would not have conversations about how I'm feeling, academics and stuff like that. I'll talk about everything else, right? And it was easy for me. I mean, for me, it was relatively easy. How would you suspect that someone who's getting accolades and recognitions and how would you suspect that person's not okay? Like, it doesn't make sense, right? It really doesn't make sense. So for me, it made me build a lot of, like, be more social, go engage with strangers mostly, like just be around strangers, be at a party. Like you said, go to those parties where you don't have to pay for the tickets, right? And unfortunately, I also started drinking, right?
Started or continued?
Started.
Yeah.
Right. And, you're just trying to find every possible thing to just like distract yourself from your life, right? From the realities of life. But at the same time, looking back, right? I don't drink anymore now, right? Because looking back, looking back, you can't run away from yourself, because after every party, I would end up in my room alone to face the same things that I ran away from, right? When it comes exam time, no one's talking about parties. It's me, my books, and the exam is coming. And then you can't avoid those feelings. You can't avoid that feeling anxious, feeling worried, You can't avoid it, right? And you can never avoid it forever. So for me, the failure made me more social, building those artificial relationships where it convinces everyone that you're happy. It helped me build a mask for myself, right?
But also, you being in housecom now, you having failed, does it make it? Do you make yourself more available as a support system for the first years then, or this is men's race and I'm your senior, and
no,
there's that facade?
For me, I've always been like open to helping others. I mean, there were people that could come to my room 1 a.m., 3 a.m. because people generally didn't know that I was going through a lot, right? So I'll always be open, talk to people, encourage people, give people advice and all of that. I mean, there's a lot of people that I've helped, and some of them might be on the live and they might be like, huh? But when this guy was helping me, he didn't seem like he was going through a lot, right? But in actual fact, if you got any help from me or went into any talk or encouragement session or whatever, that was between 2018 and the end of 2019, right? Or mid 2019. I was genuinely not okay. But it didn't really stop me from helping others, because I feel for me, when I was under pressure, it made me want to make a difference in other people's lives so that their lives did not suck as much as mine felt like it did, right? So there's that thing of, I don't want someone to face what I'm facing, right? And it just made me more available, and which was dangerous at some point, because here you are absorbing everyone's fears, absorbing everyone's failures, everyone's concerns, and you are here and still your own are still like, you're still facing your own battles. So it made me more available, it made me more available, dangerously available.
Okay, I'm not sure if he has a belt, but I see your twin is here. So we recognize the presence.
He has a belt.
We recognize the presence. Yeah, we recognize the presence of your twin as well on the live. You spoke earlier about how when failure comes, you now start reflecting and looking back at what you could have done right. And perhaps knowing that now then makes you think you could have done certain things right. But I want to be a devil and ask you, what do you think you could have done right, or you could have corrected, that could have perhaps prevented the failure? Or maybe to pose a question differently, how would you advise someone in a way that will prevent them to go the same route that you went?
Look, have your studies in check before you add stuff. Like, have your studies in check before you add stuff. If you can get to a point, right, and I'm speaking from personal experience, if you can get to a point where you don't know where your calculator is, or you don't know what your course will be covering that week, you're already in danger. Danger does not start in the exam room. Danger starts when, if I ask you, I'm like, hey, Karabo, what lecture topics are you covering this week? And you don't know. You're already in the danger zone, right? So for me, I feel like the correct thing for me to have done would to always be on top of my work and understanding the hierarchy of varsity. It's your schoolwork and then everything else, right? So there was a time when I looked for my calculator during exam time. I did not know where it was. I found out a year later that I borrowed it to someone. I didn't even notice that they did not return it because I was not using it. I was not practicing, you know. I was not going to class. There was a point where I tried to go to a lecture in semester 2, and when I went to the class, it was empty, only to find that the lecture venue had changed, and the lecture venue changed on the second day of class. Easy.
Wow. So, wow. Okay, I wanted to ask you also, what are some of the life principles that period of failing, period of appealing, period of being excluded, what life principles did you take from there? And I'm intentionally saying life because you did say that we should look at life as a whole and not let academics occupy or rather seem to take over the whole our whole lives. So what life principles did that academic hurdle teach you?
I mean, it taught me the importance of humility, as I mentioned before. It taught me that it did not matter who you were. Like, trouble hits everyone, right? It taught me not to be as judgmental to people's journeys, and not only think that if someone fails, it's because they were not studying hard enough, right? It taught me not to take people at face value. Someone's life might look like it's going well or that they're okay, but unless you know from them that they're okay, then assume not okay than okay. Because if you meet people at FNB or look at me assuming that everyone knows what FNB is. If you see anyone in any lecture venue, right, people always look happy. People always look like they've got things under control. The strongest people are the ones who allow you to see their moments of weakness, because then they are able to embrace it and deal with it. Those that look okay are not always okay. Those that don't look okay are on a journey to recovery. So it really taught me that I don't take people at face value. If I ask you, how are you? And you say, I'm fine. For me, it's the same as you have not answered, right? And around 2019, from 2019, I stopped asking people, how are you? Right? So I then ask people, are you at your best? That is the best question to ask someone. Don't ask someone, how are you? Because we've been programmed from primary school to say, when someone asks, how are you? You say, I'm fine, right? So it's a natural thing. It will just, right? So ask someone, are you at your best? Now, if someone's not at their best, effectively it means they're not fine. Because sometimes when you ask someone, how are you? And they say, I'm not fine. In their head, they're like, but I mean, it's not that bad, so I guess I'm fine. So they'll always say fine. The answer will always be fine, right? So ask someone, are you at your best? Or one that I've recently started to do is like, just ask someone, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling emotionally? Or how are you feeling? Like, ask better questions if you want to reach out to people. Now, this is not talking about you. This is about reaching out to other people, because we are a community. You are a resident, right? We are a community. It's students against the world. That's one thing we need. That's another thing I learned. It's students against the world. We need to collaborate. I could not have made it through my degree without people that I met at my residence. I'm telling you, in my final year, there was a friend of mine, Fidelity. Like, he would always sit me down and be like, they call me transport, be like, transport, exams are coming in 4 weeks. Have you started studying?
Wait, was that your housecom office?
It was my freshman.
It
was my freshman name.
Okay.
Yeah, my portfolio, I had academics and student development. So I did like 2 portfolios.
What?
Yeah.
Under having went through all of that, and then that's the portfolio you got.
Yeah, it was funny because then here I am, I'm in Golden Key, I'm in the academics portfolio, I'm in the student development portfolio, but here I am dealing with my own. So that's why it was like such a mix up, right? And so I really like some of the lessons of like humility, learning not to take everything at face value. Chances are, if you look at 10 people, probably only 2 of them are as okay as they look. So you need to understand that, right? And even people who are doing well academically, don't assume that their life is going as great as you think it is. Right? Because we have this thing where like, I wish I was Mamang because Mamang is passing, right? I wish I was Mamang because they don't have to, they have their own challenges which they're facing. And as students, especially at varsity, you understand that varsity, people are between the ages of 17 and about 25, 26. When you're 17 and 25, 26, your family members, if your parents had you when they were 20, they are now 40. Meaning your grandparents are older, right? So between 25 and 26 or between 20 and 30, a lot of the people you grew up around or who raised you are getting older. And that comes with certain consequences. That comes with having to deal with grief at some point. For some people, it comes at varsity. For some people, it comes afterwards. So there's a lot that we're going through as students, and it's okay, right? It's okay because it's part of the experience. At some point, you will meet failure of one sort or another. Your failure might not be academic. It might be emotional. Baba Ngoe, they will get dealt with by Mujolo. Baba Ngoe, they'll get dealt with by family.
You see now. You see now.
But I'm telling the truth.
Anyway.
Right? And
true.
The one thing is, I learned that life is not linear, right? It's not as clear cut as it seems, right? I've had friends who graduated record time and had a breakdown in the year after and stuff like that. So be grateful, like appreciate where you are. Not that your life is exactly where it needs to be, right? But or where you want it to be, but appreciate it. Like appreciate it. Appreciate everything. Appreciate the people around you. Like appreciate your friends. Appreciate anyone who reminds you to study. Appreciate anyone who reminds you that you're going off track. You might not like those people in the moment. I remember in 2018 when I was going for a glass of gin at an after party. I was going for that glass of gin, and this lady from Sunnyside was like, Phenyo, are you okay? Right? And I was like, I just looked at them and I was like, yeah, I'm okay. Right? And they're like, okay. Then I took the drink. Right? I only told her this year, right, that look, you know what? Back in 2018, when I was going for the drink and you asked if I was okay, I'm sorry that I lied to you. Because clearly she saw that I was not okay, but I denied her the opportunity to come in, and I don't know how that would have ended up, but I blocked out that opportunity, right? So now I've learned that when people ask how you're doing and they check up on you, appreciate that, right? Don't take it for granted. Don't block out people because you don't know when you might need them. I convinced people for the longest of time that I was okay, to the point where they would stop worrying. And when I needed them most, they were not around because they assumed I was okay still. Right?
You've normalized it.
You've normalized it. So don't push people away. Don't push, no matter how annoying it sounds for someone to remind you that you have to study, for someone to send you like what they're doing for the lecture and stuff like that. Don't take it for granted. Don't take it for granted and take them serious, right? Take them serious. I mean, like I said before, I would not have made it out of it without people who were on my case, right? Who were on my case, literally. Like I can tell you, last year alone, like there are people that I will appreciate forever, and one of the people is actually my twin, right? I'll tell you one thing that really challenged me. Last year, I'm not sure if you remember, but last year, there was a time when I wanted to take my phone to him, to EOH, because I was staying at Junction, and I was like, I want to give him my phone, and I couldn't find him. Then I went back and texted him later. I was like, dude, I want to give you my phone. He's like, why? I was like, so that I can study. And he said, dude, take your phone, put it in your drawer and study. If you open the drawer and take it out, then you are not taking yourself seriously. And there was another point where I was going to write a test, and I was like, yo, I've got a test on Wednesday. And he was like, oh, okay. How's it gonna go? He asked me how the test is gonna go. Then I was like, hey, yo, I'm not sure. And he's like, dude, you're old. Like, how do you not know how a test is gonna go? Haven't you been prepared?
What have you been doing all along?
Do you say? So it's one of those like hard truths. People that ask you the hard questions. Have you started studying? Like, and like those people, I really appreciate them a lot. I didn't appreciate them a lot like in first year, second year, because it felt like they were nagging, right? But then you get to appreciate that, you know what? These people are actually the ones that saved that degree. They're actually the ones that saved, the people that ask the hard questions, the people that are not afraid to tell you, Karabo, you are slacking. Like, Karabo, I don't know what you think you're doing, but this is not the way to graduation, right? So I learned to appreciate those people. And most, like, for me also, I just learned that everything is in God's hands, guys, because I did take 5 years to complete a 3-year degree. But now, guys, now I'm going to Spain, right? And chances are, I would not have gotten this opportunity had I not repeated when I repeated. Not saying that repeating is fine, but trust God and trust that his process will work out. Because the person who told me about the opportunity, I met them in 2019, right? I met them in 2019 at the Great Star Awards. Now, look, that was supposed to be the final year. If that was final year, chances are I probably would not have applied for that thing, probably would not have made it there, probably would not have met that person, right? And things just worked out somehow, right? And that's also another thing to say. You might be like, yeah, I hear you, Phenyo. I hear you, Karabo. Take it in, open up, don't get left behind and stuff like that. But look, this thing has happened and I'm repeating a full year course, or I'm repeating a semester course and stuff like that. Somehow it works out. Somehow. I don't know how your story is going to be, but somehow it works out, right? And I've just learned to be a lot patient. And the last thing, right, is I learned to be kind to myself. I learned to be a friend of Phenyo. We need to learn to be friends with ourselves. What does being a friend to yourself mean? Being a friend to yourself means that you do things that benefit you, right? Being a friend to me is telling myself, Phenyo, you failed. Yes. Don't beat yourself up. Because problems are there to beat you up. Challenges are there to beat you up. So don't beat yourself up before you actually go to the fight. You need all that energy. The best thing I can do for myself is be there for myself, is to be my biggest fan, right? That's the best thing. Whether I'm failing academically, whether I feel crushed emotionally, the best thing I can do is be the best friend to myself that I can ever be. And sometimes being a best friend to yourself means taking yourself to see people, taking yourself to consult, maybe with CCGU, with a friend. Like, be a friend of yourself. I can tell you now, if I had not gone through that, I would not have learned some of the lessons that I have now. That no matter how life is going, I will always be the last person to give up on myself. I will not allow someone else to want something for me more than I want it for myself. Like be there for yourself. Like, be there. Like, not saying do that, like, be there for yourself. Don't find yourself in a position where everyone's like, no, but get up, Miguel. Get up, my guy. Bro, you can do it. And when now you are there. No. Like, be there. And never be afraid to say what is against your situation. People will always say, yo, I know. Yeah, hey, probably at this point you might not be able to get a job. Yo, are you gonna, hey, your chances are you gonna lose a bursary. Hey, friend, your life is over. Hey, don't allow that. We don't need that energy. We don't need that energy. Have the boldness to say, I will graduate. Have the boldness to say, I will pass, even when it looks like you need a 75 in that exam. And I will say, I will reference someone again. There was a point my twin needed 80 to pass. He got that 80. I'm sorry to put him on blast like that, but he is one of the reasons, like, I'd look at him and be like, there's resilience, right? And it sounded like a crazy story. But if you believe in yourself, even if you fail, it's not that when I failed, sometimes I didn't believe in myself. You know, funny enough, even when I did not study, I still expected myself to pass. Right?
You believed in yourself so much.
I believed in myself, right? But I learned soon that you need to believe in yourself, but also you need to give yourself the right tools. You know, you need to study, right? But when it comes to the believe in yourself check, I got the mark for believing yourself. Like I believed in
whether
myself.
Or not you studied.
Whether or not I studied, I believed in myself. I woke up in the morning, got dressed, got a pen, sat down, and the paper chowed me, right? And I left there and I was like, everything's gonna be okay, right? But yeah, but mostly that was like the emotional work, the psychological work that you need to do every day. Like every day, say something good to yourself. Every single day, say something good to yourself. Every single day. Don't miss a day when you're not good to yourself. Because sometimes it's true. There comes a point where you are the only person in your corner. And imagine if the only person in your corner is not used to encouraging you or saying good things about you. You will be left with a monstrous version of yourself who will beat you down when you should be picking yourself up. And I had that point where the Phenyo that I had when everyone was not around me, or when I blocked everyone out, that Phenyo said, you are a failure, you are a scam, look at you, you are inexecutive, but because it's chowing you, what. Hey, man. You see, and that was a harsh Phenyo, right? And he was harsh to me. So I learned to be kind to myself. Now I am kind to myself. I'm kind to myself. I know I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I am handsome. Like, look, I am Phenyo Mabokela. Like, that is
boy.
Me. I am the boy. The boy is me. Like, the boy is me. And that's the attitude
I think I should send a shout out to your twin. Wow, your twin has been a supportive system, and I'm thinking you also equally are a supportive system. Fun fact about these twins: when they save each other, you see the same way you save someone's number and you met them at ShopRite. So you say Karabo, like at ShopRite. They save each other's number like that. So Phenyo has his twin saved as Open's twin, and then Open's has Phenyo twin. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
But I ask people to engage with us on the comments, and Lerato Sitsiba says, when you bring something into the light, it loses power. You are able to deal with it. Talking and reaching out is important. I wanted to ask you then, what advice would you give to students now going to Murkos? Tomorrow is semester 2. What are your final words that you'd like to say to them? And anything that you think you need to hold in there and share.
So what I'd say to them going into semester 2 is the advice that changed my life when I got to Wits. It was shared to me by Andrew Jones, who was the lecturer who organized pre-accounting. He said to us, you are now at Wits, right? You are at university. Some people might have known you as someone else back home, right? And they know you, they know your traits, they know your strengths, your weaknesses, but that's who they knew you as. But here at varsity, you have an opportunity to reinvent yourself, to be whoever you were. Every regret you had at high school, you can then work on at university. So even high school, you had a regret that I did not stand up for leadership positions enough. Now's the chance for you to do that. So in the same way, going into semester 2, people might have known you to be the person who does not ask questions in the team's meeting. People might have known you as the person who does not consult with lecturers, as the person who doesn't ask their friends, as the person who does not study. Do not let yourself be trapped in the version of yourself or the weaker version of yourself that you have let others to build. If they knew you as a lazy person and suddenly you decide semester 2, I'm waking up at 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. and starting my day early, right? Do not let them drag you back to the weaker version of yourself, because growth comes at a price. Growth comes at the price of denying and being against the weaker version of yourself that people knew. When you start being committed to your studies in the second semester, people will keep trying to bring you back to the you that was not committed to their studies. But it is your duty. It is your duty. As a soldier has the duty to protect. It is your duty to protect the future version of yourself. to do it for the younger version of you that said, I am going to Wits and I'm going to get my degree. It is for you, no one else but you, because only you know yourself and where you want to be. So if you have goals for semester 2, they're in your head and in your heart. No one else will see them. Your friends will still offer you the same offers they gave you in the first semester. If Fridays were for drinking, don't be surprised when they invite you to drink on a Friday, because they know the former version of you. But do not let them drag you to that lower version of yourself. Go into this semester reinventing yourself to the version that you deserve to be and that you desire to be.
Wow, profound mouthful. Thank you so much for that. I think it lends it to everyone. Dr. Desmond says, trust the process and believe in your individualized journey. We will all arrive at our destination, but not at the same time. Some will get there foot, some will get on bicycles, others will get there on train, others on plane. Thank you so much. Lerato Sitiva says, know yourself, love yourself, and be kind to yourself. I saw a comment from your twin of, be confident and go with a positive mindset. Your mind needs your support. Cheer it on. Reinvent yourself. Lerato Sitiva says that. Munzelele says, wow. And Sitiva says, powerful. Thank you so much, Phenyo. I think I need to ask you, you did drop that you did flex that you're going to Spain. I'm very interested in how do I go to Dubai at least, or anywhere else. So do you mind telling us about that? Is it still under wraps? Are you still protecting it? Will you tell us in due time? Can you not tell us?
So it is under wraps a bit for a moment, but it all starts with applying and then linking up. If anyone is interested, I'll send you the thingy, the application and the thing. It is open to anyone. From once you have your undergraduate degree, you can do it. But I'd really encourage it for everyone, and it really broadens your mindset. Think above, think outside of Africa, right? Like think outside of Africa, think outside of South Africa, think outside of Wits, right? And that's one thing. I never knew about such opportunities, which is why when they brought it to me, it was quite like a wow, like wow. So this is actually possible. Like, okay, cool, right? And it really did challenge me. So I will share more details as it goes. Now I'm just ironing out some stuff, right? But yo, my team.
No, all the very best. All the very best with that. I wanted to ask also before I let you go. I also, I've met you quite a couple of times, but I was shocked to see you giving a DLU induction. And I was like, oh, okay. And now that you mention all of these things, I'm very now curious to know, how does Phenyo move from being excluded to now orientating housecom members, and now giving them the lowdown of what is it that is expected of them? How do you move from being taught by Wits to working for Wits? That's a flex, eh?
Yeah, I mean, it's all in the journey. I mean, like I said, be kind to yourself and rebuilding that trust in yourself. Your confidence, when you fail, it puts a dent on your confidence, right? So you need to rebuild it, build that confidence again, believe in yourself again, believe that the same Karabo who was doing motivational talks at high school, going up and down, is the same Karabo that is here today. You have not lost anything, right? Everything you once believed about yourself that you can do is still valid. It's just that it's not playing out the way you expected it to be, right? So I've always been open to taking the opportunity and pushing forward even when it hurts, right? Even when it hurts. I mean, sometimes you have to do these things when your own things are not coming together, right? And so just always being open to help others. For me, that's been my journey of growth. I wouldn't say there's a secret or I knew I was crafting the path. I was just always open to helping the next person. So then if someone says, can you help with this? I would go help. And I got to meet a lot of people while helping, right? I got to meet a lot of people while helping. And then it went back to what would I want to do different? So those conversations that I'd start up with members of staff to say, what are we doing for leaders? What are we doing for this? What are we doing for this? Then they put you in a position to say, you know what? look, this person actually can do something or can add value to this because it's something that I'm passionate about, right? And whatever you go through, always know that it has value for someone else. You might not have met them yet, but your hanging in there is important, because in you hanging in, it's not just for you. There are people that will count on you. There are people that will benefit from your struggle. The same way we have benefited from the struggles of others. But in that season, remember, it's for you, right? And there are many people that will follow. So for me, I've just always been going, availing myself. Okay, I can do this. I can do this. This is where I want to make an impact. Because I believe that if I don't do it, I cannot point fingers when the problem persists. Right? If I am not having the conversations and raising these issues up simply because I am no longer a student, right? That will be on me. If someone has to go through the same pains that I went through, which I could do something about, that is on me. If someone's like, so I've always been that. So that's just been it for me, just availing myself to help, even when it hurts. I say this because there are some people that might be here that are like, okay, but I want to help, but sometimes it's just hard to help people. I mean, I remember helping someone raise funds for their fees, whereas mine were not sorted, right? And I was able to help them. Like, then they were able to get their fees cleared and everything. Mine was still outstanding, right? And it's in those moments that build you, that remind you that the world is bigger than you. The world is bigger than Phenyo. Right? The world is bigger than Phenyo. What we're having here is bigger than me. It's bigger than you. Right? The impact we're having, it's going to impact someone. It's going to inspire someone. It's going to help someone. And that someone will help someone else. There will be another Phenyo, another Karabo. I'm not saying there'll be another Phenyo and another Karabo because we are the model. No, but because I don't know who their names are yet. Right? So there will be whoever it is will be there. And what we're doing here, someone else will do. It might be through audio, it might be through video, but we are the seeds for other people's growth. The same way people have been the seeds for our own growth. So always availing ourselves to do these things, it always leads you. It always leads you to more and more and more. It says, blessed is the hand that gives and the hand that receives.
Phenyo, are you still there? Hello? All right, let me read the comments. Desmond says, humility costs nothing but pays for everything. I agree. He then says again, your dreams are valid, African child. I think Phenyo left. Your dreams are valid, African child. Thanks, Phenyo. Oh, the best is yet to come. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined. We have now reached the end of this live, and I would like to wish everyone all the very best. I think Phenyo really stuck to the theme. The theme was not an average student, and I think when we thought about that as a committee, it was like Phenyo is not the average student. He's seen both the extremes, being at the lowest low and also being at the highest high. And we've seen himself actualize in this very space. I think it's a very inspirational story that you and I should take from. He dropped quite a lot of gems that were here. And I really do think that we do need to revisit videos like this. And I would like to appeal to house committees that will take over after the 2021 House Com, that these are things that we need to save, in as much as you want to be innovative in your term of office. Also remember that there are certain things that you need to preserve. And I think this video is one of them. And the many others that we are still going to do and we have done. Please think about the people. Thank you very much to everyone who has joined. Again, I'm wishing you the very best for your second semester and your academic endeavors. If you have failed, it's not the end of the world, and it's just the beginning. And you do have, thank you so much, Phenyo and Karabo. Thank you so much for your time. You do have what it takes to rise above that failure. And Phenyo has shown us that even if he has completed a 3-year degree in 5 years, he still made it out. He still made it to Golden Key. Remember, it's a lifetime membership, so he's still there. He works for it. He works for Wits. He works for DLU. He trains house committee members after being in housecom and failing. Now that is a turnaround, and I hope that was inspirational enough. I would like to reiterate, as he has, that it is okay to reach out. We have structures out there. We have the CCDU, we have course advisors, we have mentors. Don't sit, reach out and get yourself helped. But nonetheless, all it takes is a change in mindset, a change in work ethic, and a change in how you channel your energy. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Karabo Dynamite Nyalungu, the very best female chairperson of Yale Village. Thank you so much.